Hey, my name's Jesse Lavine. I'm 24 years old. A lot of my life experience has sort of been shaped around my experience with type 1. I was diagnosed when I was 11, so I've had it for 13 years. It's really sort of changed my whole life. I just appreciate life every single day and just try and live it to its fullest and just really try and live in the here and now. Yeah, one of the ways that I do that is just like controlling my diabetes. And because I have diabetes, I have a very intimate relationship with food. That is basically what affects my diabetes. So when I was first diagnosed, I was drinking a ton of water and I was peeing all the time. I would wet my bed at night. My mom sort of started becoming aware of the signs and sort of Google was like just coming out at that point. She was becoming very aware, like asking friends, like moms or friends to watch me. And I woke up one night and I chugged 2 liters of water in under 5 minutes and just like proceeded to wet my bed that night. So after that, my mom made an appointment, yeah, I went to the doctor and my blood sugar was 550 around there, which is just outrageously high. Like a normal range is between like 70 and 90 for someone without diabetes. Yeah, I was the first person in my family to be diagnosed with type 1. My neighbor across the street just happened to be living with type 1, so his mom came over and just like helped my mom a lot in those early days. And when I was first diagnosed, I went to the doctor, and as an 11-year-old kid, he sat across from me and was like, "You are your own doctor," which is like a pretty crazy thing for an 11-year-old to hear. The doctors told me to eat 90 grams of carbs per meal. Think about this. So type 1 is basically when your pancreas doesn't work, and your pancreas secretes insulin. And insulin helps us break down all the glucose and carbs that we intake from the foods that we eat. Some of them are naturally found in foods, some of them are processed. But when your pancreas doesn't work and you don't produce any insulin, the doctors are like, "Oh, so let's make you eat a ton of carbs and then just load you up with insulin." So I've come to realize that later, that it's like, oh, that sort of seems like it's really benefiting the pharmaceutical companies and not really the people actually living with type 1. So I've since made a huge lifestyle change, and I generally eat pretty low carb. I just got an insulin pump, which is nice because I don't have to think about diabetes anymore. So I've been incorporating more carbs, and the biggest thing for me now is just to have stable blood sugars. And just to not really think about type 1. Like, I'm at a point in my life where I'm just thinking about so many other things, and like type 1 has been a lens that I've basically viewed every single day of my life through. When you're first diagnosed, they sort of want you to learn the calculations sort of in the hard way, by like drawing insulin injections. And so for the first year I was not on an insulin pump, and then I got on one when I was 12. And I was on an insulin pump for 6 or 7 years until I went off to college. And then I had a pretty gnarly experience on my freshman year orientation trip, where we had a backpacking trip in the Big Sur mountain ranges. And at that time, I thought I had enough supplies with me. Turns out I did not. So we were, hiked 13 miles into the Big Sur mountain range, and like crazy terrain. And my pump sites kept sweating off of me. And so I was going through supplies much quicker than I had anticipated. And we're 11 miles deep into the Big Sur mountain range, and I almost had to get a medevac out of there. But like spent the whole night sort of like very much on the brink of a very dangerous situation. I had one pump site left, and I was determined to make that last for the time that we were there. So there were like 9 people in my group with this, and I just stripped to my boxers and hiked the whole way out, just with a towel padding on my pump site the whole time, so I could make sure that it stayed on. And it wasn't the best situation, but it really taught me a lot about the fact that I need to be prepared. I just can't afford to do that anymore. So after that, I was going on a trip to France that summer after freshman year. And I was like, there's no way that I'm gonna pack all these supplies with my pump. We were trying to just do it with one backpack, and I wanted to fit in with the rest of my friends and also take one backpack. So the only way that I could do that was to go on insulin injections. So I had these like preloaded pen vials where you like just stick a needle on each time, and it's basically a fresh needle. And I used those for 6 or 7 years, just because it just afforded me a lot more freedom. But now that I'm in a much stabler point of my life, and like, yes, I'm traveling, and yes, I'll probably continue to be very fluid, moving back and forth between a pump and shots. The goal right now is to keep my blood sugars stable and to just dial in to those numbers. So there are many theories of why diabetes happens. It could be onset from a virus, or like from drinking cow's milk, or there's a theory that like if you have ancestors who lived in some like very cold part of the world, then anyway, there's two types of diabetes. There's type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is where you basically don't have a choice, your pancreas has shut off. And type 2, it's a lifestyle thing, and it's not necessarily a choice that people get it. Like, there are so many environmental causes of that, and we have to really be aware of that and not like put blame on these people. But at the same time, they like, if there is proper education and their doctors are smart enough to help them realize this, then there is a chance of reversal. And I have a really close friend, his name is Keith, and he's on this program. He's had type 2 for like 20, 25 years. He's had a pretty big gut. Keith has been doing this program, and back when he first started it, he was like, man, like I really miss sweets. And I sent him some no foods, and he was just so grateful because he was like, oh, I'm able to eat no foods, like, you know, a quarter of a cookie at a time or half a cookie at a time, and it doesn't throw me out of ketosis. I'm still able to continue on my journey of losing weight, and I'm still not taking the medications that I used to take. He was off of insulin. He actually used to wear an insulin pump because his body was so damaged that he couldn't even produce insulin anymore. And now his body is producing insulin again because he's gone on this low carb lifestyle. Not to say that low carb is the only way, but it worked for him. And Keith attributes a lot of his success to finding no foods and finding a substitute food that, you know, will help him sort of go from like, oh, you can't eat any of this stuff, to, yeah, like you are supposed to eat mainly these foods, but here are like this very wide range of food products. And I think that's so cool. It's like to attribute to one company your success in losing and maintaining weight loss. And also not only weight loss, but sort of the reversal of a disease. Like, oh my God, that is huge. Like, more people, please find out about this, because like it's life-changing. When I talk about my own experience with type 1, it's sort of a no choice thing. Like, I always have to do it. Like, it's always on 24/7 when I'm sleeping, when I'm like driving, when I'm taking a test, whatever. In a business meeting, and the goal is to balance. And so, yeah, so when I wake up in the morning, my day is sort of defined by like, how can I not let diabetes affect me today? Will this amount of insulin cover the amount of carbs that I'm eating? Maybe if it's a small enough amount of carbs, the more carbs I intake, the less likely I will be to achieve balance. And I can see that balance pretty easily on the trend line. I get my blood sugar checked every single 5 minutes with my continuous glucose monitor. And that's sort of like a very solid visual that I have for what balance means to me. And it's also about energy too. Like, the line doesn't just represent like, oh, how flat can I get this line, but it represents my energy levels. And when I intake a lot of carbs, it not only raises the graph of my blood sugar, but it also has a number of effects on my physiological mood. Like, I can be tired, I can like just fall asleep, like I can be talking to you but not paying any attention because I'm just zoned out. 2 hours later, my blood sugar can come crashing down, and I can be in cold sweats and like be looking frantically around the room for a banana or like some Sour Patch Kids or anything that has sugar in it that will save me in the moment. And that is something that I just like try to avoid. Like, those are such drastic highs and lows that are actually life-threatening. Like, as a 24-year-old, I've had the life lesson that I learned when I was 11. My doctor was like, oh, like if you eat this burger and fries, like maybe substitute the fries out, because if you continue eating these fries and just like gain weight, then you could just lose an arm. And I was like, oh my God, I want my arms. I like these things. I've been very lucky to have doctors who have been smart enough to look at this, the old paradigm and change it. And the old one was high carb and the new one is low carb. And I really believe in the low carb because it really helps me achieve that much more balance. It's not perfect by any means, but gosh, it's so much better.